You get pulled over for a burnt out taillight. Nothing more. The officer walks up, glances through your window for 2 seconds, and everything changes. Not because of anything you did, because of what's sitting on your passenger seat. An empty holster, a single rolling paper, an unsealed can in the cup holder. None of them illegal, none of them proof of anything, and all three completely capable of turning a routine stop into a full search of your car. Here's the part almost nobody realizes until it happens to them. You don't need to be doing anything wrong for an officer to gain the legal right to search your vehicle. Sometimes all it takes is what's already sitting in plain view. This is a video about three ordinary objects that quietly satisfy a legal threshold most drivers have never even heard of, and why leaving them visible could hand police a legal invitation you never meant to send. Let's start with the concept underneath all three examples. It's called the plain view doctrine, and it's exactly what it sounds like. If an officer is lawfully standing somewhere, say next to your car during a traffic stop, and they see something in plain view that provides probable cause to believe evidence of a crime is present, they don't need a warrant to act on it. The Supreme Court solidified this principle in cases like Coolidge versus New Hampshire and later refined it in Horton versus California, establishing that officers don't need to inadvertently discover something anymore. They just need to be legally positioned to see it. Your car window is essentially a legal window into everything the doctrine can reach, unlike your trunk, which generally requires a higher standard to search without consent. The passenger compartment and anything visible through the glass sits in a different legal category entirely, one where the simple act of looking from a position the officer is legally allowed to occupy can be enough to unlock further action. And that's where these three ordinary items come in. Let's start with the empty holster. Imagine you legally own a firearm. You keep a holster in your car, maybe clipped to the seat, maybe sitting in the door pocket. But today, the gun isn't in it. Maybe it's at home, maybe it's in the trunk. To you, an empty holster looks like nothing. To an officer trained in threat assessment, an empty holster visible during a stop can trigger something specific. Courts have generally upheld that officer safety concerns justify a protective search when there's reasonable suspicion a weapon might be accessible, a standard established in Terry versus Ohio back in 1968. An empty holster doesn't prove a weapon is illegal. It doesn't prove anything is wrong at all. But it can reasonably suggest that a firearm exists somewhere nearby, unaccounted for, which is often enough to justify what's called a protective sweep, a limited search focused specifically on areas where a weapon could be reached. Legal researchers who study Fourth Amendment officer safety exceptions note something almost paradoxical here. The absence of the weapon can raise more suspicion than its presence would. A holstered, visible firearm registered and secured is often less alarming to an officer than an empty holster with an unknown location for the gun that belongs in it. The uncertainty itself becomes the justification. This matters more in some places than others. States with permitless or expanded concealed carry laws have seen courts wrestle repeatedly with exactly how much weight an empty holster alone should carry. Some rulings have found that officer training and department protocols increasingly treat visible holsters, empty or not, as a standard prompt for a weapons check, regardless of whether the driver has done anything else to raise suspicion. The holster itself becomes the trigger, not any specific behavior tied to it. Now, the second item, a single rolling paper. Even in places where recreational marijuana is legal, rolling paper sitting visibly on a dashboard or center console can still create probable cause for a search, particularly in jurisdictions where certain paraphernalia laws haven't caught up with changing drug laws, or where impaired driving statutes remain strict regardless of legality elsewhere. Legal scholars studying drug paraphernalia enforcement have pointed out a strange inconsistency in how these laws are applied. A rolling paper by itself isn't illegal almost anywhere. It's a piece of paper, but courts have repeatedly allowed it to serve as one piece of a larger probable cause puzzle, especially combined with other factors like the smell of marijuana, nervous behavior, or inconsistent statements during questioning. On its own, A single rolling paper rarely justifies a search. Paired with almost anything else an officer notices, it becomes part of a stack of small, individually weak signals that together clear the legal bar. This is worth sitting with for a second. Probable cause doesn't require one dramatic piece of evidence. It can be built entirely out of small, ordinary details stacking on top of each other, each one meaningless in isolation. Together, apparently enough, courts refer to this stacking process using a phrase worth knowing: the totality of the circumstances. It means judges don't evaluate each individual detail in isolation and ask whether it alone justified a search. They look at everything together: the rolling paper, the way you answer the question, the time of night, the neighborhood, and ask whether the combined picture would lead a reasonable officer to suspect criminal activity. Individually weak evidence, once combined under this standard, can add up to something courts are willing to call sufficient, even when no single piece would have been enough standing alone. Now, the third item, and maybe the most surprising one: an unsealed open container. Every state has some version of open container laws, but the specifics vary enormously, and this is where things get genuinely confusing for drivers. An empty beer can from last week's tailgate, still sitting in your backseat, unsealed, uncapped, can in many jurisdictions establish probable cause for further investigation, even if there is no alcohol currently in it, and even if you weren't drinking at all. Criminal defense attorneys who handle DUI adjacent cases frequently point to open container violations as one of the most common accidental triggers for expanded vehicle searches. The container itself doesn't have to contain anything, it doesn't have to be recent. It simply has to be visible, unsealed, and consistent with what the law defines as an alcoholic beverage container. And depending on the state, that alone can justify officers investigating further, sometimes extending into a broader search of the vehicle if other factors align. So here's the pattern across all three. None of these items are illegal to own, none of them prove wrongdoing, but each one, sitting in plain view, gives an officer a legally defensible reason to look further. And once probable cause exists for any part of the vehicle, the scope of what can be searched often expands well beyond where that original item was spotted. Why does the law work this way? Legal scholars generally explain it as a trade off built into the Fourth Amendment's own language. The amendment protects against unreasonable searches, not all searches, and courts have consistently interpreted reasonable to include situations where visible evidence, even ambiguous evidence, gives officers legitimate grounds for suspicion. The bar for probable cause was never meant to require certainty. It was meant to require more than a hunch, and ordinary objects in plain view often clear that bar more easily than most drivers assume. Here is the modern mirror, the part of this that extends far beyond the traffic stop. Small, seemingly meaningless details accumulate into judgments about you constantly, in contexts that have nothing to do with police. A hiring manager notices a gap on your resume, and even though it explains nothing on its own, it becomes one data point in a larger impression. A landlord notices you hesitated slightly answering a question about your job and files it away alongside everything else they've observed. None of these small signals prove anything individually, but humans, much like the legal system, are remarkably good at building conclusions out of a pile of ambiguous, individually weak evidence. Behavioral researchers who study first impressions and snap judgments have found that people form surprisingly durable conclusions based on small, incomplete cues, often within seconds, and then unconsciously interpret everything that follows through the lens of that initial judgment. An empty holster doesn't just get evaluated on its own, it gets evaluated alongside your tone of voice, your eye contact, how quickly you answered the first question. The object is never really examined in isolation, it's stacked onto a running total. Think about how often this exact stacking happens somewhere far removed from anything legal. A single typo in an email gets noticed alongside a slightly late reply, and together they quietly become seams disorganized in someone's head, even though either detail alone would have been forgotten by lunch. A first date runs 8 minutes late, and that lateness gets mentally filed away alongside an offhand comment, and the combination hardens into a verdict about reliability that neither detail could have earned by itself. None of these moments involve a courtroom or a badge, but the underlying math is identical. Weak signals, added together, start to feel like strong conclusions, even when the strength was never really there. So, what do you actually do with this information? To be clear, this video isn't legal advice, and specific laws around plain view searches, paraphernalia, and open containers vary significantly by state and by country. Some places have moved away from strict paraphernalia enforcement entirely, while others still treat it as a serious trigger for further investigation. So, what's true in one jurisdiction may not hold in the next, but the broader, widely echoed guidance from defense attorneys is simple and practical. Keep your vehicle's interior as unambiguous as possible. An empty holster stored out of sight rather than visible on a seat. Personal items kept in a bag or glove box rather than scattered loosely where they can be misread. None of this is about hiding anything illegal, because none of these items are illegal in the first place. It's about not accidentally handing an officer a stack of small, ambiguous signals that can legally justify searching further into your life than the original stop ever required. Because that's the real lesson underneath all three examples. It was never really about the holster, or the rolling paper, or the empty can. It was about how easily ordinary, meaningless objects can be reassembled into something that looks legally like a reason. So picture the stop one more time, a burnt out taillight. A 2-second glance through the window, nothing you did, just what was already sitting there, waiting to be looked at.